My pleasure to be here. I do want to share one of the greatest mysteries with you of all time, and that could well be it. You know, when you think about it, how did this happen? How do you lose a Boeing 777 in this day and age when we've got all sorts of redundant systems on the plane, networks, radars, observations, and yet the plane's nowhere to be found? You know, how is it? And the thing is, you know, there's so much confusion about what happened to that plane, what's true, what's not true. Go to sleep one night with one set of facts, the next morning they've all been contradicted. And you know, to me, it's not just about the plane. I mean, the plane's a great problem, great mystery, but there's 239 souls aboard that plane, and for their loved ones, for their families, for their friends, and for the rest of the flying public, we need to find that plane. You know, and so that's a huge question. What happened to to Malaysian Air Flight 370? Here's another mystery. You know, you take this image for granted, but in a way it's the same deal. A lot of confusion about this planet. You know, I'll tell you, it's changing. There's no doubt about it. It's changing faster than we can understand it. And like the case with Malaysian Air 370, there's a lot of question, is it natural? I mean, is it a system problem? Is it a catastrophe that we don't know about? Or are humans involved? Same thing with the planet. And I can tell you for sure, humans are involved. You know, we're involved in this. And despite all of our technology, you know, we've got all sorts of facts, all sorts of data, and yet we want to deny it. You know, and today I have a hard time with climate deniers and talking to them from a scientific point of view. I always just want to use the phrase dumbass. Come on. I mean, what the heck? You know, so the thing about the planet is that most of it's water. I mean, you know, this is going to come back to get us in the Malaysian Air issue too, but most of it's water, 71%, average depth 2 miles. That's a lot of ocean water. And we've only explored to date about 6-7% of what's beneath that ocean water. And when we peak down there, it's an amazing place. We find the world's greatest mountain range, mid-ocean ridge, 50,000 miles long. The world's greatest underwater valleys, the greatest valleys on Earth, the most mountain peaks. We find underwater rivers, we find underwater lakes. We find underwater waterfalls. The largest waterfall on Earth is beneath the sea. We find more life in the darkness of the deep sea than we find in terms of diversity and density than in the tropical rainforest. And all that stuff is hard to believe. Many of the things we find in the ocean hard to believe, but it's really hard to believe is that on this scale, you can hardly see any trace of humanity. None at all. And yet, like a microbe, we've managed to make this planet sick. You know, we've managed to change the chemistry and temperature of the atmosphere and of the seawater. And anyone that has an aquarium knows if you fiddle with the temperature, you fiddle with the chemistry, you're asking for trouble, and that's what we're doing. We're asking for trouble. And it's not the big events that gets us, that's going to get us. It's the tiny things. It's the incremental things. It's our everyday way of life. It's stuff that trickles out to the ocean in clear spring water that rolls out of a farmer's field or a golf course or our city streets. Because if you go to the middle of that ocean and take a sample from a fish that lives there, in the stomach, you'll more than likely find little bits of plastic. And in the flesh, you'll find things like flame retardants, nutrients, fertilizers, pesticides, all the stuff that we think is so great for life. We need to change our habits, people. We need to do that. And you know, the other thing is that the planet's great, exploration's great, oceanography is wonderful, plate tectonics, fantastic. Climate change, the science, it's a wonderful science. It really does work, rhythms and cycles. But it's about the people. Like Air France was a whole nother plane. It's like Malaysian Air 370. You know, there's 7 billion people on this planet right now, many more to come. And my fear is that we're going to screw it up for the rest of them, for the coming generations, mostly because we're asleep at the switch. Not that we don't have the tools, we're just asleep at the switch. Put it this way, the oceans, they provide us with the air we breathe, every other fresh breath of air you take. You can thank the oceans, 50% of the oxygen comes out of the sea. The food we eat, billions of people depend upon the oceans for their food. The water we drink, and we just saw a wonderful bit of a film about water. The water we drink, most of the water on this planet, you heard it in that film, starts in the ocean. And so one day we said, how can it be that there's billions of people on the planet that are water starved, and up here we took all the water off the earth just to see how much there was. The big blue ball over India is all the water on the planet, The tiny little speck next to it, that's all the fresh water. You can do that calculation for yourself, but it's an amazingly tiny bit of water on this planet, incredibly fragile. It's not what it seems, and that's the case with most everything we see, that we tend to take things for granted that we shouldn't. Now, I'll leave you with a quote. It's by Marcel Proust. It's one that I live by every day. It's the true voyage of exploration's not so much in seeking the landscapes, it's in having new eyes. And in this case, to me, it means it's not so much, now that we have the technology available to us, we can go to the deepest part of the sea, go out into space and look back on the Earth. We need to take that information, start looking at this planet differently. Thank you very much. Thank you.